I officially stop singing when that happens, so I don't
Yeah,
freak out people
here
who
they
wants to be
come.
shot
Good
by
morning. Oh,
me.
Suzanne is here.
Yeah, I saw that immediately. Suzanne's ready to power through some good.
Well, I'm on Martha's Vineyard, not too far from Amy.
Oh, really? I'm in the mountains of Maine, so guess what? We are.
Well, I was there last weekend, so what can I say?
Oh my God, you guys are like world travelers.
World travelers.
I am in Seattle.
Those are so cute. Your glasses, I like them.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Suzanne, you're getting some compliments.
oh, thanks. I didn't know who anybody was talking to.
That was Sally Fox, the one and only.
I like your glasses. They're so
Oh,
cute.
thanks.
And Elaine's here.
Yeah,
Wait,
I mean,
where is she? How come I can't see anybody? Oh well.
Oh, here. I'm gonna make you co. I'm gonna make her
Sorry.
co
okay.
so she
yeah.
can see people. Oops, it keeps moving.
It's
So,
okay.
Kathy, I'm in the last stages of my indigo.
Oh, good.
Well, it's now the sludge is at the bottom, and tomorrow I'm going to drain the rest of the water.
Yay.
I took it from Cambridge on the ferry to Martha's Vineyard. So it's a traveling indigo vat.
That's right.
Well,
Pretty.
crazy. I'm going to mute myself.
Good. All right.
I saw Betty a little while ago. We got some really nice little love letters from you guys after yesterday's newsletter and announcing it's our 11th birthday.
Oh my goodness.
Thanks, Betty.
We're in middle school.
Middle school. we're freshmen in college.
No, we're like in 6th grade.
Oh, gross. I don't
Yeah.
have.
6th graders.
Oh God.
That
please.
really awkward time.
Yeah. I don't even want to talk about 6th grade.
Ugh.
I was popping my collars in 6th grade. I was
Oh
breaking.
my God. I think it was in 6th grade that girls were actually allowed to wear pants.
Okay,
That's how old I am.
Kathy. You need to tell
Yes.
a
Back
different
in the
story.
day.
Back in the day.
All right. How are we doing? We're good?
We're doing good. You want to
Yeah,
I'm
let's go ahead and
I just hope internet holds out. I hope everything I'm supposed to do holds out.
you don't have the hurricane. I'll let people in.
Hurricane last week and now really weird rainstorm here in the mountains of Maine. All right, here we go. Are you guys ready? Please mute yourselves. Thanks, Lisa. Lisa Check gave us the check. Okay, here we go. Okay. There's that. There's this. Dun, 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 Sally Fox. And now?
Well, it's the end of the week. Now where you been? Well, now it's Feedback Friday, so come on in. Come sit down and stare at your screen. We got a presenter that you never seen. We're Feedback Friday, we're on the loose. We'll be the train, you be the caboose. It's Feedback Friday with Kathy and Amy. Mashed potatoes and the gravy. It's Feedback Friday all day long. Feedback, feedback, Feedback Friday.
Excellent rendition by the Feedback Friday Dance Collective. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the music. How y'all doing? Welcome. It is episode 63 of Botanical Colors Feedback Friday. And this is our weekly show where we speak with dyers, scientists, activists, farmers, growers, historians, people who just are really super interested in stuff about our favorite topic, which is natural dyes and color. I'm Kathy Hattori, president and birth mother of Botanical Colors, which makes it sound like I had to give the baby up for adoption, but that's what Amy wrote today. It's still my baby. I'm still the mother. And Amy Defoe, sustainability and communications director at Botanical Colors, and who confesses she is living in a stand-up tragicomedy. Good for you, Amy.
Thanks. Amy.
All right. So today we have organic cotton superwoman and my personal spirit animal, Sally Fox. Welcome, Sally. Sally's a cotton breeder scientist who breeds naturally colored varieties of cotton. She's the inventor of Foxfibre and the founder of the company Natural Cotton Colors Incorporated. I got to take my script down, you guys. Here we go. So Sally invented the first species of environmentally friendly colored cotton that could be spun into thread on industrial processing machinery, and has been called a cotton pioneer for her efforts regarding organic colored cotton and also growing heirloom wheat. Sally's been breeding and growing organic cotton, naturally colored cottons since 1982. I mean, that's kind of around the year I got started with textiles. And I remember not long after Sally coming to weaving and spinning conferences with these little bags of cotton sliver and asking us to just try it and see what would happen. And it was so fun to work with that at that time. She's recently noted that her careful land stewardship over the last 20 plus years in the Capay Valley has more than doubled the amount of organic matter in her soil, which is really important. We talk a lot about water use, water quality and carbon issues with the current climate crisis. So the fact that Sally is actively working in order to try to capture carbon into her soil, this is really important, and just makes me absolutely happy that it's happening. So she's built this productive organic farm, and she has a large herd. God, tough morning. A large herd of Merino sheep that Amy and I visited, and just beautiful. Sally goes down there with the sheep and she does this thing and they all come running to her. It's amazing. So we're so happy to have her. Sally's focus has always been on sound land stewardship and carbon capture and retention, and we're really proud to carry her fabrics and support her in any way that we can. Before we start, I want to just say thank you to everyone who's been supporting Feedback Friday today, yesterday, and for the last 11 years. We are 11 years old this week, and we could not even do this without your help. So thank you, thank you, thank you. For a little housekeeping, Amy's going to be our moderator and we'll be monitoring chat. We'd like you to keep your sound muted until the end when we open it up and everyone can say hello. And we just want to say that today is an EP version of Feedback Friday. We actually have Kenya Miles and Rosa Chang, Kenya from Blue Light Junction, Rosa Chang from Indigo Shade Map. Two of our favorite people who are working in indigo are going to be doing a Q&A about indigo after Sally's presentation, and we end the main part of Feedback Friday. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be fascinating. And we're just going to have this total, thank God it's Friday, we're 11 years old, mega event. So without any further ado, oh yeah, one other thing I got to tell you. This call is being recorded. We'll have a version for you to look at afterwards on the website, and any resource information that you have questions about will be either in the chat or attached to the post that is on the site with the video recording. Okay, Sally, it is now your time. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Thank you for the beautiful introduction. Thank you for having me. Welcome, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed this. And I'll turn it over to Amy now. Let it go, Amy.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sally. I feel like we're just kind of in network people here. Let's see. I'm going to share a little documentary that Sally, who did this little mini documentary on you?
Yes, I forgot. My cousin, I have a number of wonderful cousins, 34 of them. And this cousin was is a retired architect, and she took a documentary class at San Francisco State. and she made this documentary about me and my work. And I think it's just really great. So there you go.
Okay. All right. Can you guys hear me still? Okay. Kathy, you can hear me, right? Okay. Just want to make sure you can hear this. Okay, here we go.
Sally Fox is a pioneer. Yarn has been named after her in this vein. She has been classically breeding cotton for, I believe it's 3 decades.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. In the 1980s and 90s, I was the first organic cotton farmer, and I helped start the whole conversation about organic.
And here is this finally some color in cotton, but what a lousy fiber. It was really rough, and it was short, and it was hard to spin, and I was a good spinner.
Sally Fox was an entomologist working for a cotton breeder when she caught her first glimpse of colored cotton.
I just looked at this and said, wow, what's going on here? Why isn't anyone improving this fiber so it could be more easily spun? And he said, well, there's no market for it. And I said, well, why isn't anyone making a market for it? And he handed me this sack of seeds and said, well, why don't you do it?
I worked my way through college teaching hand spinning. One of my favorite students, she had a daughter, her brain had been destroyed by handling dyes. She was a high school textile teacher and she hadn't worn gloves. The metals migrated to her brain and she was essentially brain dead. I was already a fanatic against pesticides, and so I opened these books to find out who makes dyes, and turns out they're the same companies. So, okay, I'm never gonna use dyes. I'm just gonna use natural colors of natural fibers.
Every time you're dyeing something, you're bleaching the fiber first and then you're dyeing it. And no matter how many improvements you can make, if you can grow the color, why ever dye that color? Dye colors you can't grow. So this gift allowed me to pay for the first spinning of the cotton at a research mill. And it was that first spinning of the cotton that the word got out. There were 2 mills in Japan that were trying to make a ceremonial garment for the Emperor of Japan's coronation that was going to be in a few years. And why they needed green cotton, I don't know. So this is some sort of blip, but it did happen. And this mill, because they heard that I had machine spinnable colored cotton, came to me, ordered a small amount of my cotton. It was that order that allowed me to start the processes that created this entire industry. Because I was therefore able to begin the process of translating the work I was doing on a small scale as a breeder to production scale agriculture, which is not a small matter at all. It began growing, my whole business, and I was able to quit my job as a scientist and do this work full time. But a very, very unfortunate series of events occurred. Suddenly, the World Bank, out of nowhere, decided to fund spinning mills with 0% down, 0% interest for 30 years in India, Indonesia, China, Pakistan. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, rules and regulations in the industrialized world were passed to prevent dyes and other textile chemical wastes and all chemical waste from going into waterways. This was the Clean Water Act. And those countries might have had environmental regulations in the books. But when you have a regulation, you have to have someone enforcing it. The thing is, if you can just dump the dye waste, and if the whole world is filled with manufacturers who are spending $2 plus a pound to clean up their dye waste. And you come on the market with a product that you didn't have to clean up the dye waste, you dumped it in a river. You don't have to buy equipment because you have 30 years. 30 years is a long time. And your government decides to give you the cotton for free because they decide this is our chance to take over the textile industry. All the big players switched to buying everything out of those countries. And that's why all the mills I sold to and a whole lot of other mills closed in 2 years. So in the US, 95% of our textile mills closed in 2 years, 95%. In Japan, 98% closed. In Europe, same thing, 90, 95. Everybody lost their businesses, everybody lost their mills. It was a horrible time. This only happened because of the greed of the Gap, Walmart. Those guys started it. The people I sold to, Levi's, Lands, and all those guys, they held on to the US. They kept producing here until they just could not compete. And we are only hearing about fast fashion now, and that's only because the designers got dumped. But when it was the manufacturers that got dumped, no one heard about it. All you heard about was that you could get nice things for what, not even that much less money. They didn't lower the price, they amped up their profits. And the scenes that we see today were not part of the textile story. This free-for-all, money-grabbing, billionaire-making stuff is a new form of capitalism. There are these pockets of the world where capitalism isn't a dirty word. It's a mechanism of product development, which is how this product happened. It was by capitalism.
We play a large role in how life interacts with each other on this planet. And we can play a really powerfully positive role, or things can go way out of kilter. I feel hopeful, actually, in the younger generation. Everyone I meet that's young has it very clear that they're going to be part of helping the earth heal and be part of this positive force where human life is a positive and not a negative.
Wonderful. That was great. Sally, you have a very talented cousin. Hold on, you can unmute. Sally, you can unmute. There you go.
Didn't she do a great job?
Did a really nice job.
Can you guys hear me right now, Kathy?
All right. Yes. Amy is going to jump into Q&A and discussion.
Oh, okay.
Can I say something first?
Yeah.
Yes, you can, Sally. It's your show.
Okay. Shout out to Elaine. Notice, you might remember throughout all these things, I'm wearing her clothes.
Yes.
She is the one who dresses me when I'm trying to look good and professional. What do I reach for? Elaine's clothes.
Just beautiful stuff.
What's wearing it now? Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah,
And
super nice.
I just opened chat because I was going to send something to Elaine. Elaine, will you definitely put your link in the chat for the Sally Fox shirt if it's still on your site and not sold out?
Yeah, I will. Going to do that right now.
Okay.
And a lot of them, even if they look like they're sold out, they're not, because a lot of those fabrics I have low quantity. So I wait to see what someone wants and then it gets made.
Oh, that's a great hint because I love that shirt.
Yeah, that's a great shirt. I know. I always see Sally in it. Okay. So I'm just going to kick off a question that I had for Sally when I watched that last night for the first time. And what I don't think that gets enough attention is the fact that you came to all this as a scientist. And I want you to maybe speak a little bit about how it was that you came as a scientist into what you're currently doing.
Okay, so as a scientist, I was always looking at what was going on in agriculture and trying to, in my mind, improve its sort of environmental report card. And it's really easy when you're an outsider to come up with all these suggestions. That's very different to actually, you know, sort of live through it all. And I came to have a farm and be a farmer by virtue of needing to have a secure place for the cotton breeding. And the first farm that I bought was after 7 years of sort of jumping around different farms every year that I was leasing to put the breeding program on. And the breeding program means plots, acres of plants that are all by their type and their breeding lines and all these things, individual little plots, but they take up a lot of land. And I had to farm them because normal breeders work with farmer cooperators, but there were no organic cotton farmers in the 80s. I felt like this was a really important thing to do, and so I was the first one to do it. So to breed cotton organically, you have to grow it organically, and there were no growers, so I had to be the grower too. So breeders are usually separate from growers, but I had to be both. And then I had to find a place that was more secure so the cotton could have the repeat it, you know, I could have repeat of the same place instead of constantly moving around. But that goal was destroyed actually by the growers in the different regions I lived in, outlawing it, forcing me to move again and again. I'm in Yolo County in Northern California now because there is no cotton. This is not a cotton growing region, and there's not a realistic chance that it would get outlawed by grower groups here. But it is not the ideal place to be producing cotton. But it's where, so I don't know if I've answered your question, but hopefully I came to become the farmer because there were no farmers that I could cooperate with because there wasn't organic farming then. Now there are organic farmers and I work with them. But the complexity of all the little plots and everything, I just sort of got used to running them myself, farming them myself, because that's how it evolved.
Okay.
I hope.
No, that's good. That's great. Thanks, Sally. And, you know, just to add another question on to what you just said, like why didn't people want your cotton growing around them?
Well, cotton is a very low value commodity crop, and farmers generally, the cost of the equipment involved in ginning the cotton is extremely costly. A cotton ginning plant runs in the millions of dollars, and growers have organizations where they've you know, put their resources together and put up, you know, expensive infrastructure. And additionally, where I started out in the San Joaquin Valley of California had been a historically interesting region in that it was so far away from the cotton mills in the southeastern United States that the farmers there at the turn of the century had formed a growers organization called the Acala Cotton Board. And they only allowed this one variety of Acala cotton to be grown because they marketed it all together to the mills in the southeastern United States. Back then, California was really remote from where the mills were and the mills were always in the southeastern United States. Well, they were then in the southeastern United States. So they had a legal mechanism in place to protect their market. And they had a whole elaborate system of allowing for breeders to do their work under the state. The state had to regulate us. We had to apply to be breeders. The state inspected our nurseries. We couldn't do anything without permission. A lot of you know I get all mad when I hear the word color grown. I go completely freaked out, furious with that word. And that is because early on, I'm one of these people. I followed every rule. I did everything right. And then these people came and took a truckload of my seeds and started growing that cotton and calling it color grown instead of mine was called Foxfibre. And then they refused to follow any rules at all. They wouldn't follow the state rules. They wouldn't do anything. And so the Kayla board, who managed everything, simply outlawed colored cotton, period. And you couldn't even have it in your breeding nursery. That was their response to these guys who stole my seeds and then wouldn't follow any of the rules. So I had to move to Arizona. And then I moved to Arizona. And there was this whole group of people that were against organic farming, and they hated organic farming. They thought organic farming created pests. All the pests would get going on the organic farms and then go and invade them. So then they decided, oh, let's just get rid of organic farming altogether in the state of Arizona. And we'll start by getting rid of her. So let's get rid of colored cotton because that was the only organic at that time. There wasn't too much in terms of food in organic in Arizona yet. I was, my entity, my company, we were the largest contractor per acre of organic in Arizona back in the early 90s. We had a few thousand acres of organic cotton. So the legislature was ready to pass. They had the votes to pass a law outlawing organic farming in Arizona. And the director of agriculture came and said, look, I don't want organic agriculture, outlawed, and let's try to come up with rules and regulations that will so this doesn't happen because the legislature will pass this and I don't want to see that. And so I agreed to work with them on rules and regulations that would protect seed integrity in Arizona, because Arizona is a major cotton seed production state. So for the whole United States, most of the seeds are grown in Arizona. So just in case you didn't know, in the southeastern United States where cotton is grown, as you know, it gets a lot of rain. And if the seeds get moist, once they're formed, the seed germination goes way down. In the dry irrigated West, most of the time the seeds are dry, and therefore they can last for decades if they're correctly harvested. So there's a lot of seed production in the Western irrigated lands, and Arizona already had rules and regulations about seed production. So I worked with them for like a year or two to come up with rules and regulations. And one of them was that you couldn't have any colored cotton, had to be 3 miles from anybody's seed field. And I thought that would be fine because I was in a remote place, 28 miles from the nearest town. The farm that I was doing my work on was very remote. But oh no, a big seed company put a seed production plot 2.9 miles away from my nursery. And I got the notice, you can't have your nursery here on this land in this remote place. So that just broke my heart. And I ended up calling this famous guy named Amigo Bob. Some of you might know Amigo Bob. He passed away last year. And he suggested I look into the Capay Valley, and that's how it happened. Because I wanted to be in a place that nobody was going to outlaw this or quarantine it or anything again. And my choice was the Capay Valley or the Mesilla Valley in New Mexico, but the Mesilla Valley was so expensive. The land there is almost as, ag land there is almost as expensive as the Salinas Valley, super, super expensive. So I went to Yolo County because it was much less expensive. Plus, my mom was near there, a couple hours drive away. Sorry, I go on and on, you guys.
No, every time you talk, I learn more about you and appreciate you so much more and all the work that you do. Like, I mean, when Kathy and I were there, we had like 2 days of talking. I thought I heard everything, but I think I just heard you a lot clearer about that story, and that's just outrageous. And I'm glad you just keep pushing through the nonsense and appreciate all that you do, Sally. Okay, I'm going to take a question here. So when all the mills closed, this is from Joan LeClaire. When all the mills closed, how did you get your cotton spun? And Joan says, thanks, Joan from Northwest British Columbia.
Hey, I didn't. For many, many years, there was no one spinning my cotton except I had, I just kept using the stock of yarns that had been spun at Texas Tech University. I found there's a couple of research universities, Gaston College in North Carolina and North Carolina State University. I started seeking their help, but every time you go to do something at a research mill, you just, you wait in line. It's not, and it's usually extremely expensive compared to a production situation. But what I did have, there was only one sort of continuous spinner of my cotton, and that has been in Japan. So the first customer I ever had was called Yamatobo, and they were in Japan. They were the ones who ordered the cotton for the emperor's ceremonial garment. And then they continued to order from me. And it was their order that allowed me to get the whole thing going. They went out of business when everybody else went out of business. But then another mill, Taishobo, took over their customer. They had a whole bunch of customers who were using my cotton, and they took over the supplying yarns to them. And so they are the longest. Japan, the spinning industry of Japan has kept the spinning of these naturally colored cottons going the longest so it's been since 1989 that it has been continually spun in Japan. But we had in the US about an 8-year break where I had no capacity to get anything spun here. But it was the US spinning was, I found a mill in the US. I didn't find it. It was Gale of Organic Threads. Those socks I sell on my website as my fundraiser, and you can get them at your co-op for much cheaper. But Gail and Lonnie, who make my socks, found the spinner I'm using now in the US. They kept looking because Lonnie's dad worked at a knitting mill in North Carolina that closed. And when the knitting mill closed, he bought one of the machines and put it in his Quonset hut back in the back of his yard. And he was making the socks. And then he passed away, and then Gail and Lonnie found another sock manufacturer that still was going. And then they kept looking and looking and looking, and they found this spinner for us. And that's why we have US yarn again. And that's why we have those sheets from American Blossom linens that's spun in the US.
Sally, are those American Blossom linens, are those still available?
They are. They
sell
sell out really fast. We just got that yarn was spun. It's at I just carded 3 bales for them last year. The yarn just got spun and it's being woven now. It'll be probably another month or 2, I think, before they have another batch. So when they're available, get them because they go fast. I try to buy all the seconds, and then I'm using them. My big idea is I'm going to, I have like labels that my customers can use saying Foxfibre, and I'm going to have them printed on the seconds of the sheets and stuff like that.
Oh, nice. I'll put the American Blossom linens link in when I put the video up. Okay, I want to jump into some more questions here. So I think Catherine's saying where in the world, not in the where in the wild, but maybe where in Where in the wild or world did the original colored cottons come from? Canabio in Mexico just posted
No.
something on wild cottons.
Everywhere. White is a color of cotton, and there's even different colors of white. Color in cotton it's part of its makeup. Now, where people have been using naturally colored cotton, spinning and using them has been important for many cultures. The ones that I know about are in Peru. There's a tremendous archaeological effort to keep their most traditional naturally colored cotton lines alive and going and undisturbed by modern breeding. In central Mexico, there's another area where there are historically important naturally colored cottons. The seeds I began with were collected and grown by, they were originally grown by enslaved Africans throughout southeastern United States. Then those seed lines were taken over by the Cajuns. The seeds I started with were collected in the 1930s by the USDA from the Arcadians, and I got them from this USDA breeder. Naturally colored cottons are in the seed banks. That all the seed banks have many naturally colored cotton lines. There are 4 species of cotton grown that were domesticated for their fiber use. 2 of them were domesticated in the Americas, and the 2 domesticated in the American species have 4 sets of chromosomes. 2 come from, it's kind of one of those mysteries. In the old world, in South Africa, 2 species of cottons were domesticated, Gossypium arboreum and Gossypium herbaceum, and they have 2 sets of chromosomes. They were domesticated in South Africa, but they were domesticated for multi-use. They were animal feed and fiber. They were brought eventually and grown extensively in China and India. They have 2 sets of chromosomes. In the Americas at the same time, this is all like 4,500 BC. There are these 2 species that 90% of the world now grows, and they have 4 sets of chromosomes. But what's interesting is one of the species, Gossypium hirsutum, has 2 chromosomes that are from the old world cotton and 2 from a wild cotton in the Americas that has no lint. Then the other species, Gossypium barbadense, same thing, 4 sets of chromosomes. I only work with the cottons that have the 4 sets of chromosomes that were domesticated in the Americas. So my colors are all from the stock, the breeding prowess of the breeders of the Americas from 4,500 BC.
Wow.
However, I feel often that the treasure of the color was improved by, and how do I say this? I feel like green, in particular green that came out of the brown, I feel strongly it must have been from the result of the breeding of these enslaved Africans that were working on them along with rice in the where the Sea Island cottons were from. This is my personal theory. I still have a long time to go before I would really have any sort of proof. But from what I've read about those breeders that were stolen from West Africa to come to bring the technology of rice to the Americas, they took really excellent breeders from West Africa. And in the same place where the rice technology was introduced in southeastern United States, it's the same place where the Sea Island cotton and the green cotton are found, and they haven't been found other places. So I feel like there's a lot of mystery there. Mm-hmm. And when I do my work, I feel like I'm sort of like observing through the way the plants express themselves what previous master breeders have accomplished. they're just not known. They're not named. They're not appreciated. Everyone acts like this is just some sort of, I kind of object to being called as an inventor of this. Like, I'm not an inventor of this. I'm only a person that has improved the fiber length and strength enough to be used on machinery. I didn't invent colored cotton. Cotton has grown in colors everywhere. When they invented the spinning machines, they zoomed in on the fiber qualities of some of the most highest yielding white cottons, and they left all these other ones behind. And all I've been doing is sort of bringing them up to have characteristics that would allow them to be spun on machinery.
That's humble of you. And I appreciate, again, just kind of the explanation of that. I mean, yeah, we always give credit to people that maybe get the best marketing, or, there's a lot of people who have been part of the journey for a lot of things that are organic or regenerative, or, in the textile industry that we oftentimes don't look to. And that's a lot of time it's also the indigenous community. Okay. Let's see, why did you have to move when the other farmer put their farm 2.9 miles from you, and how could they be allowed to do that? Good question.
Because the rule was colored cotton had to be over 3 miles away from anybody's seed field. And anybody who had a white cotton seed field had priority over this product that they did not really like.
But that seems really intentional. It seems very intentional that they went 2.9 miles from you to get out of there. Yeah.
Very intentional. Oh, yes. Yes. Okay. No, there has been, if I want to get depressed, I can think about this a lot. And what I do is avoid thinking about it a lot. But I actually have been, working on trying to record and write the stories of all this. On Instagram, I've been writing them under the verses, and I have them numbered. I have to take these big breaks because I really get down in the dumps. I mean, I'm telling the good stories now, but then when I get to the bad parts, oh man, it's hard to keep myself up. And if I don't keep myself up, then I'll just not be able to do any work. Yeah, it was mean what they did. What people did to me was mean. That's it.
Yeah.
But what they did to me was mean. But what I kind of felt like is that I got a taste of what many people experience constantly. I feel like it was the way, like I was in the store once, and this creepy, grumpy, I was young, and there was this creepy old guy, and he comes up to me, are you the colored cotton lady? And he spits on me. And I'm like, what? I thought to myself, okay, this is, I'm getting a tiny taste of what people of color experience all the time. When my mother was a child, my mother was Greek, a Greek American, and the Greeks were reviled in San Francisco. They were like, everybody hated the Greeks when she was a child. The dirty Greeks, the this Greeks, the that Greeks. Her brothers got beat up all the time, all this stuff. She was walking down the street, some creepy old guy spit on her. This is the memory that came to me when this man spit on me. I remembered my mother telling me about how it felt to be a child, and some creepy grown-up old man coming up to you and saying, oh, you dirty Greek, and spitting on you. She used to tell us that these things are intangibles, and you can't really, like, you don't even know how they affect you. And so when I had not experienced that until I'm in this grocery store, and this awful farmer, and maybe he had good qualities. I sure didn't see them. All I saw was his awfulness. And then so because of my work with the cotton, I feel that I've gotten a small taste of what many people in the world go through experiencing daily. And so I find it, I didn't like getting that taste. And I felt like the outline of these cottons was yet another aspect of this kind of like a projection of racism. Like, because this cotton comes from African Americans originally, and that's what all these farmers knew, because it came from African Americans, they're gonna try to get rid of it, and they're gonna try to put it down. And because I'm its ambassador, I'm gonna get put down too. But what that did for me was granted me the capacity to have more respect for other people for what they go through all the time. So
yeah.
And
There's always
Sally,
yeah.
you persisted.
Yeah.
You definitely persisted. I remember hearing that you were leaving Arizona, like you were in San Joaquin Valley, and then you went to Arizona, and then you were coming back. And I remember, just hearing, oh yeah, what's going on? And someone said, oh yeah, they won't let her grow there. And that was just like, what? It didn't even make any sense, right? Because we didn't know what the politics of agribusiness and cotton was, but I do remember those days. And here you are. You're the standard bearer. So
thank you. I like to consider myself. Go ahead.
All hail Sally Fox.
No, stop it.
No, Sally, you're so like I said, you do so much great work. I can't help it. I'm sorry. Everybody's saying it too in the chat. I'm not reading it.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to jump into another question because I don't even know where to go after that. Does the soil where the cotton is grown have any impact on the color?
Well, this is interesting. So the Russians were playing around with colored cotton, the Soviets, not the Russians, the Soviets, in the 50s. And they had this big idea they could get really brilliant colors if they put all these heavy metals in the soil. And apparently they destroyed like thousands of acres with pouring toxic metals into the soil. So early on, when I had money, I usually never have enough money to do the science I want to do, right? I just sort of, I muddle along with whatever money I have. That's what I do, right? So, but a few years I had good money from the sales of the cotton to all these mills, because at the peak I was selling to 38 spinning mills around the world. And I tested the soil for metals in the production fields. And what was interesting is the variety called my Buffalo, which is a Pima brown, it was pulling the copper out of the soil. So it was taking, so I don't know that it would become deficient, but it was just an interesting thing to see that the copper level went down significantly where this was. And one year we tried growing it in this, the coyote brown grows really well in super high salt soils. And so there was this area that had such high selenium in Kern County that nothing could be grown. And we tried coyote there, and it just did, the color was gorgeous. So there's a lot. I feel like if I actually was in charge of research that was funded, I would look into using these cottons for soil remediation in situations where the salts are so high, and see if we could use this cotton to pull these toxins out and turn them into brilliance.
Kathy, if you don't say it, I'm going to, because it's a great opportunity to, right?
I'm just about to jump out of my chair. My God, that is just the quintessence of regenerative and remedial agriculture. It's just like, whoa, the fact that you can grow something in basically poisoned soil and restore it's such a powerful story.
So powerful. And also, because we only have like 5 minutes left of Sally talking. Yeah. Can you believe this?
How did this go?
I know there's still there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions you've answered though. I'm scrolling through. There's a couple you haven't, but I think it's really important. So when Kathy and I talked with you on Tuesday, we talked about you setting up a page for donations towards something that could help your research. So can you talk a little bit about, or a machine that you needed, or can you talk a little bit about what it is that you need right now and how people, I have the link ready. I'm going to put it in the chat, but you talk about it and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Well, so this year I didn't grow any cotton on my farm because I last year totally exhausted me trying to do this in the pandemic and the expense, and we're running out of water this year. I didn't know if I would have water for the cotton. But next year, I'm hoping to put in a seed increase of the new color, that saffron color. I'm calling it saffron now instead of Sierra Sienna, which was its name, because the expense of producing it was so great. And I got these tiny little totes worth, and I thought to myself, oh, this is like saffron in expense. Anyway, the thing is that my major grower in New Mexico, Dosi Alvarez, has told me about these things called finger weeders that you attach on the back of your tractor. You have to have somebody sitting there kind of like making it go closer and farther away, but it reduces the cost of the hand weeding. You still have to hand weed, but not as much. And these things are, it's about, $17,000 investment. And so when you asked me what people could contribute for, I added it to I have a donate to the breeding program little option on my website in case socks aren't good at, when you buy socks from me, the price is way higher than at your co-op. So people who buy from me are doing so to support me, to support my work. And, but if you don't want anything I have to offer, you can donate. And, but just to say something here, all the things I sell on my website, this is how I support this work, because I sell things. I'm the one filling the order and I'm slow. Everybody who orders from me has to be all patient because I take forever to send their order out. But at this point, it's still very, what's the word? Meager. So if you feel like donating, that's something I could need help with, is these finger weeders. And I put a section on the donate page on the way down at the bottom. I didn't have a chance to put a picture up of them because I'm not sure which kind I'm going to get. Thank you.
I just put a little link on there that said it looks something like this, because we were looking at different pictures, not the creepy one with the guy with the fingernails for Halloween finger weeder guy, but the actual tools that go around. And there's a link in there too for that Sally's donation page that she's talking about. Let's see.
Yeah, and so Sally, the reason that you want the finger weeder is because it reduces the amount of expense for having to do everything 100% hand weeded.
Right. So yeah. Right, because I rely on the generosity of all these people who work at the other organic farms around me. I mean, I pay them and everything, but they have to work. They're working 12-hour days at the organic farm next to me. And then if they feel like working overtime, they'll come over and help me. And they're exhausted, and I'm always exhausted. It's always the hottest time of the day, and they're doing it. They get paid, but come on, they're doing it because they're saints, absolute saints. So I hate to impose on people when I could have a machine that reduced it, so that their help to me was more about,
running the weeder as opposed to being the weeder.
They can actually be sitting. If I'm driving the tractor or one of them is driving the tractor, we can be doing the thing, but sitting there on this thing instead of walking along, it's so exhausting in the heat to be weeding again and again and again and again.
Right.
So we still have to weed, but not as much. It's just,
got it.
Yeah.
So very worthwhile.
That's what I think. That's what Dosi says. Dosi says he really the difference is remarkable. So
great.
And Elaine, I was just looking quickly on Cosa Arts as these guys are talking, can you also put in chat like the Sally shirt?
Yeah, you know what? I just looked online myself and I can't find the shirt.
I can't either.
So I will put it up later today, but there's two things. There's what Sally is wearing right now. Is that it, Sally? My screen is a little, it is called the Gordy shirt. It's like loose button down. It's like a men's shirt. So it becomes an oversized shirt. I think it comes like I do it as a band and as a collar with either way, but there's also a tunic that's called the Sally tunic. In fact, I'm gonna make some in the Sea Island cotton. I'm working on a prototype right now, but the original Sally tunic I made with the reverse side of the fabric that was made in Japan because it is so gorgeous, the back side of the fabric. But I make it either way, but I will make sure today to get the Gordy, the shirt that she has on right now, which was named after an architect, on the website.
I found the Gordy shirt. I just put that in. And then, yeah. And then the other thing is, you know, we do production for Sarah Danu, and Sarah Danu uses a lot of Sally Fox cotton too. It's beautiful with her matter colors, how it takes
that stuff is beautiful.
Fabrics. Yeah. And not to forget that, and I put that in there too, we also sell Sally's fabric now on Botanical Colors, and that's in there too. And you can just search for Sally, just put Sally as you search on it. Then you'll see Sally's 2 options, and I think there's more fabric coming, isn't there, Kathy?
We have several rolls of the Sea Island, the lawn, the beautiful lightweight, and then we've got a roll of the twill, which I don't know, Elaine, have you used the twill, the coyote twill?
So
it's this one.
Yeah, the soft one, right?
It's like you want a blanket out of it.
Yeah. So right now on my website, I have a tunic called the Reversible Tunic that is made out of that. So it's like an oversized tunic. It's, but I made it reversible because both sides of the fabric are so beautiful. You can wear it either side, in or out. So,
super cool.
But I have a crop top and a tunic out of that fabric. It is really soft, and yeah, you do want to wrap yourself in that.
Yeah. And if you're a knitter, Sally also has beautiful naturally colored merino wool, and I used it for one of the classes I taught pre-pandemic, and it was a natural brown. It's just, I think it was the medium brown that I got. It was beautiful. We did hand painting on yarn, and it just took the color really lovely. So that's there as well. If you're not into fabric and you're looking for yarn, she's also got that.
Thank you. I like that somebody's like, I'm trying to buy Sally's socks, but the website has an error.
It does? Huh.
Check it out.
I don't know. The socks are, a lot of the mediums are all back ordered right now, where that yarn is being spun. We've had a lot of delays at both carding and spinning in the US. My Taishobo Seki in Japan has been wonderful. They are not back ordered, but the mill in the US is terribly back ordered. It's taking 9 months at least to get anything made in the US right now.
Wow.
So,
all right.
Okay. I feel like everybody has something to do with Sally, even Heidi Iverson's. Like, she has a kit that I wrote a pattern for too, the Shadow Valley cowl.
Yes, it's a really nice, Heidi, it's really nice. And I just sold it to a beginning knitter. It's a wonderful pattern for, especially for beginners. So I love that. Thank you, Heidi.
All right.
Oh, amen.
Sally, thank you again for such a wonderful, inspiring story about just sticking to your guns and trying to figure out how to make it work for a long time, because you've been doing this for a long time. Like I said, Sally's my spirit animal. We actually share the same birthday.
Oh, that's right.
There are moments when Sally's talking and I'm like, oh my God, of course. It's great. I'm just going to talk a little bit about next week. And then we're turning it over. And Sally, please stay because it's Kenya and Rosa, and they're going to talk about indigo in our extended play version of Feedback Friday. But just a few reminders, we are still running our 11% for our 11th birthday discount. And the discount code is happy birthday. We made it really hard for you. And everything is on sale, I think, except for stuff that's already on sale and any workshops. So please take advantage of that. I think even if you purchase a certain amount, you get free shipping as well. So you can kind of take advantage of every special that we've got. So do that. And then for those of you who were at our last week's presentation with Threads of Life in Bali, they just wanted to send out a huge thank you. They were able to raise basically enough from our sale, our special sale, that they're feeling like, okay, they can weather the next few months without just freaking out. I mean, they were in a pretty, I would say that the Threads of Life studio is probably in better shape than other places, but there are many, many artisans in Indonesia, in the islands, and on Bali who are really having just a difficult time feeding themselves because they have absolutely zero tourism. They've been locked down. They opened like for a week and then they got locked down again because of the Delta variant. And so, you know, nobody's able to really make a livelihood. So they really super appreciate all of the support, and you should be receiving your incredible textiles within the next week or two because they did dispatch most of them. They are also running the discount through tomorrow night. So if you were waiting or on the fence, you've got one more day to take advantage of this amazing sale. If you want the discount code, Amy can put it in the chat for you.
Just did.
Okay, great. So that's that. And then our next week's speaker will be Claire Wellesley Smith, joining us from the West Yorkshire in the UK. So Claire is one of those people that I've been following on Instagram for a long, long time, but actually kind of didn't really know very much about her. But she has this beautiful, very meditative stitching procedure that she does. Like, it's just kind of her life are these beautiful stitched pieces that she does. And so she'll be sharing her experiences with us next week. She specializes in projects that use local natural color, and she creates those from locally homegrown and foraged plants. So there's a whole bio on her that we'll be publishing in Feedback Friday, so you can RSVP for next week. And she's got a book coming out, so I'm going to have Sienna look for that, and hopefully we'll be able to carry that as well. Truly inspirational. I mean, I just feel like July, Amy, you have just kind of outdone yourself. We've had Threads of Life. We had Sally today. We have Claire Wellesley Smith next week. I mean, it just keeps coming. And
EP next week, extended play. We have Britt Bowles from Spell Fiber.
Oh, fantastic.
All your indigo questions next week as well.
All your indigo questions, Suzanne. All of them.
All of them.
All right. So Sally, again, thank you so much. It was amazing, and just renews my determination to see that everything that you want to do gets done, because you're such a treasure. Thank you. And let's now go to Kenya and Rosa and get ready to talk indigo and answer questions for you.
Extended version.
We're the EP, right?
Okay, where are you, Kenya? Where are you, Rosa?
Right here.
Okay. Oh, hold on. Kenya. Hold
hey.
on. Spotlight, Kenya. Let's get Rosa. Where's Rosa? Rosa. Come on. Rosa, say something.
Rosa was a small blue square somewhere.
Hello. All right. Add a spotlight. Yeah. Look at this. The indigo duo. Yes. So like I said, this is our rough draft of going into extended version of Feedback Friday, but where it's Indigo July and all things indigo. And hopefully you guys saw, I have it in our link in Instagram. that we have Kenya put together a video on how to grow and harvest seeds. And then Rosa did some illustrations that I hope we can get Kathy to start. Maybe we can make posters of them, Rosa, and then we can sell them on Botanical Colors, and everybody can know how to do extraction methods in some artistic way.
Yes, sounds fantastic.
Hi, you all. Good to see you.
Yeah. So let's see. So we have the chat. The chat is open to ask the two of these amazing indigo folks all kinds of questions. So I know Suzanne's got to have something, but hey, I'll kick it off because I'm growing indigo right now in my front yard. And listen, what happens when the leaves start getting a little yellow down at the bottom? Is that am I not watering enough? Am I over watering? And can I use those leaves still?
Well, my answer would be no. I don't know what Rose's answer is. I think once they've sort of gone yellow, like pure yellow, like if they're light, they, are sort of transitioning from like a rich green to lighter yellow, they still have, a good pigment. But if they're like pretty, I just literally was harvesting all this morning. I did a small harvest at Parks and People. So it is 91 degrees in Baltimore and it is hot. And it was a very, interesting day. But I would say that when you start getting yellowing, generally that for me is just saying it needs more, like I compost, add more compost to the base of the plant, just directly around it. And then I'll water it after I put it on immediately, just so that it starts to sink into the soil. And I find that helps with yellowing of the leaves. And often it's that combination of like it's hot and they're sort of struggling for water. So if you're watering regularly, then likely it just has to do with like the nutrients because they're growing so much and they're trying to sort of, it's like fruit, any plant, you're trying to support all the leaves that are coming out and some are taking more than others. So
yeah. Kenya always really well said. So thank you. I appreciate. I really, yeah. It sounds like she explained very well. So.
We'll make you answer the next one then.
Yeah.
Let's see. I am working on the water process to extract color. I tested the pH content, added lime. Is it possible to have a pH too high?
Oh, you mean like to aerate or the process, you mean?
Water process to extract color. I'm working on the water process to extract the color. I'm thinking it's like what you did actually, Suzanne, maybe Suzanne's.
Yeah, when I put in I tested the water before and I wasn't sure that my pH strips were working because it seemed like anything I tested, it came out the color that it was put in. So I was a little worried but I think it's okay. But I definitely was beyond a 10, which is supposed to be the right pH number in this process. Right now, I'm at the point where I've taken out some of the brown water, about half of it. And then I'm waiting for it to settle again because I had to transport it in a car and it probably got shaken up again. So it looks okay, but and also, can you get color from that water, that brown water? Those are my questions.
So I just want to clarify, you mean like, are you on the extraction process, you mean, right? The pigment extraction process, that's your question?
Yeah.
I see. I'm sorry, I was confused between that making process and then the extraction.
Yeah, I'm
so
extraction, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you aerate the, I think the right pH will be like at least 10 and like 11 between. That's what I
Oh, good.
remember. And like, I don't know, just not based on the extraction process, but based on like even like the vat making process in general. I think if the pH goes too high, I usually like wait for a couple more days or add some water to dilute it. But yeah, but I think as long as if your issue with the pH, I think it just I think you're right in the right place. And also I haven't dyed any fabric with that brown water yet. So
I'm gonna
I don't.
Yeah, I mean,
Suzanne, try it out and just tell us what happens when you do it.
I will. I'm going to be doing it tomorrow morning.
All right. Well, tag us. Let's see, while we're talking about water, could you give us an idea of how much water to give indigo? Maybe Kenya. You wanna-
Yeah, well, I think it totally depends on where you are, because there are places where right now for us, the season is extremely hot, but we're also sort of in an interesting climate change as everyone is. And so we get a lot of rain in Baltimore throughout the summer. And not just like light rain, but you know, there was like a tornado in DC or something. So we get a lot of heavy rain, kind of Delta style. So I think if you are on drip irrigation, which is my preferred way to grow everything, it sort of right now, while we're in these really, really extremes, I try to do it 4 times a day, so that in the morning and in the afternoon, but before the sun rises and after sunset, I will have like a 30-minute water, and then I'll do at the highest points of the day. The reason that I prefer irrigation, for a number of reasons, it cuts down on your hand watering, but when you're in really, really hot summer days, you can burn the leaves. And so when you're putting water directly on top, that's adding to sort of like anything, you know, making something hotter as it reflects on with the water and the sun. So if you're on irrigation, if you're, I would say 4 times a day. If it's one of those things where you have just a little bit, or you have enough to like, you maybe put a sprinkler on or something, I would do those before your hotter times of the day, because, and I would definitely say in the summer, at least 2 times a day for sure.
Maybe like a slow drip kind of irrigation hose or something like that.
Yeah, you can get at Hidden Harvest, which is our adjacent dye garden to Blue Light Junction. We don't have any irrigation, and our water source is all the way across the alley at the other sort of portion of the farm that is literally across an alley and at the end of the street. So we have triple hoses that we run from the water source. And then we just got like, Ace has these like strips, Ace Hardware, that are kind of green and white striped. And they have, they're pretty malleable. And so we run those along the sort of perimeter, but like the area that's kind of where the indigo bed tends to be for us right now. And because we don't have constant irrigation, we don't have a timer, we don't have any of that, we kind of go in multiple times in the week to water, and you know, try to get to that every day, at least once a day, because you'll notice real intense like slumping. And you know, like I said, we're fortunate enough to get rain, so I kind of just keep an eye on when it's going to rain, and base the watering. You know, it's just basically like every day, and sort of planning the week is how we sort of gauge our watering.
I have a rain barrel that I use for my slow drip, so I'm gathering all the water from we get our big rainstorms here in the Northeast.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We have barrels, but we don't have them set up so that we can run them through the garden as of yet. But that's a project that has been several years in processing, and we're trying to get the building that Blue Light Junction is in. There's a back end. It used to be an auto body shop, so the back end is like carports, but the roof is flat. So the landlord is helping us to sort of move the drainage so that it comes out through the back area, and we can start to collect rainwater from the roof as well.
That's awesome. Okay.
I wanted to add a little bit of the time frame for the watering. I mean, for the drip irrigation, I don't think it wouldn't that much matter. I just remember what the Indigo Master who like taught me for sharing their knowledge. They usually water very early morning before the sun up, and also like avoid those like a hot day. I mean, as Kenya mentioned, to avoid the burning leaves opportunities, and then water them when the time almost the sun goes down, like later the day. So I just, because they don't have a water irrigation because it's like bigger farm. So
yeah. Let's see. Okay, what is the best climate for the Blue Light Junction seeds, which we've been selling on Botanical Colors and sold out of? My God, so many seeds. All right, what is the best climate for the Blue Light Junction seeds? I live along the coast of Northern California, San Francisco Bay Area. I bought the seeds and would like to know the best time of year to plant, or if I will need a greenhouse.
Well, because I lived in the Bay, I have a little bit of information, and I also grew while I was living there. I grew indigo, not at a large scale, but just in a personal dye garden that I had. And generally, you can start the plants earlier there. I think we would start, like the rainy season would end around March, if that even is still a thing there. I mean, I know the weather's changed so much, but I would start to put my seeds in early March, whereas here we can't do it until our last frost. So this year we didn't get things in until we put some stuff in Hidden Harvest in April, thinking like, okay, frost is done, and then we got a huge cold snap, and we had put all this indigo in the ground, and it was just like really short and like holding on. And part of that has sort of adjusted a lot of other plants that we're growing, like cotton has not done that well for us this year because things went into the ground later. And it's just been an interesting sort of, you just have to adapt. And so I would say if you're in Northern California, you get much, it also depends on what microclimate you're in. So I used to live in Oakland, on the east, in East Oakland, where we had really, really, really warm, like it was like 10 degrees difference from being in downtown, right? So I would start my plants in March, and then I would get, a growing season through basically like what they call Indian summer, so through September. But I think it will just depend on what climate you're in, and you definitely don't need to greenhouse. I would say you just end up having a longer time. So you could also go a little bit later if you wanted to, like May through September or something like that. Because I know October is also still pretty warm there too.
Yeah, Kenya and I did both seedling indoor at the Blue Light Junction and also just sowing outside. So I did that. I think we tried it like late April, right, Kenya? Little early April, but like indoor. And then I separately just to try the direct sowing process in May. And it's a little bit slower, but I think they're also doing well both. So
yeah, I'll say just to add to that, that one of the things that we weren't certain about was sort of investment in a third growing season. So Rosa and I grew for 2 seasons through a project called the Baltimore Natural Dye Initiative at Parks and People Foundation in Baltimore, West Baltimore. So the third season was like unknown, but what I asked of the groundskeeper at Parks and People last year was that they not cut the plants. So we had harvested about a quarter. We had probably like 700, 800 plants last year that we were growing. And instead of cutting them down, I just asked them to let the rest go to seed. And our winter, we had snow and stuff, but it isn't as heavy as it has been, traditionally. So basically what happened, it happened with the marigolds too. We essentially have grown around 900 plus plants this year, all self-seeded. So nothing that we have at Parks and People did I plant indoors or did I start from seed. They literally just all grew on their own. So we had done a really good combination of, we have a place called Veterans Compost, and they do community composting through a veterans project. And so we had them give us a bunch of like manure, and we essentially compost. So we prepared the soil. And so I'm interested to see like how many years I can push just letting those self-seed. And then when I need to, because I really do believe in like the low no-till practice. And so the same thing happened with the marigolds. We started out with 200 the first year. We ended up with 400 last year. We probably have about 800 to date. They're literally like, when we go to try to weed, we're like, oh, no, that's marigold. Oh, no, it's like, there's literally just marigolds everywhere. And so we have so many indigo seeds so I kind of feel like if you just let something go to seed and, as is the sort of life of a plant, like it's here to persist. So that's another sort of, I'm really into like low level farming because it's a lot of work. So
I'll throw another question at you about, well, somebody's saying that they're a newbie and do I need to wait until after the plant goes to seed to harvest?
So are you trying to harvest for the seed or are you trying to harvest for the dye?
Cindy, if you want to unmute yourself and just give us some clarification on that, feel free.
That would be dye.
Yeah, I'll let Rosa answer that.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question, to be honest. Can you repeat if you don't mind?
Do you need, is it better to wait till after the plant goes to seed to harvest the leaves? Or can you harvest them before, or when should I harvest them, I guess is my big question.
When do you need to harvest the indigo leaves, you mean?
Yes.
Where do you live?
St. Louis, Missouri. My plants are probably 4 or 5 feet tall right now.
Okay, so what about the size of the leaves? It sounds like you're so ready to harvest it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's time.
Yeah, it's a time. But what's the size of the leaves you have it? Is a handful, like a palm size?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yes, go for it. You should harvest this weekend.
Cindy, I'm coming over. I want to harvest.
This is it. This is the time.
Yes.
Anybody in the St. Louis area, get a hold of me because I had more plants than I thought I would have, and I saw somebody said they didn't have any. So message me if you can.
Yeah, so I would, if you, even if like one of the things that happens is sometimes the seeds start to come up prematurely, like the blossoms come, and we're even in June, July. And so we clip those off because we're not ready yet for seeds to begin to bloom. So that allows the plant to sort of focus on the pigment. And so you're not gonna, you should be able to get 2 harvests out at least of your plants. And so give it another like 6 to 8 weeks after you do this harvest them again. And then you can let the second, after the second harvest is done, you can let those plants grow again and your seeds will come up. And then you can decide, because you'll get, listen, you're gonna get so many seeds. Like,
yeah.
So you can decide like if you want to collect some and keep them, or if you want to just let them seed themselves.
How much do you trim off of one plant? How many leaves can you take at one time?
Oh, that is a very difficult question because they're very robust, but it seems like a Kenya will answer the better because English is a second language for me. So you want to explain, Kenya?
Well, I would just say when you're cutting, you're gonna try your best. I don't stick to really any of this stuff. This is like when I teach, I tell people take notes, but I don't take notes. But do your first practice in a way so you can understand how to sort of be a little more relaxed with things. But you want to cut and leave at least 6 to 10 inches of the plant. And you're going to just really cut where the larger leaves are. And usually because indigo has the nodes, you can see where's a good place to cut below one of the nodes. So that way you'll start to get the leaves to bloom back on the other side and the plant will continue to grow.
I really wanted to add one more thing though. You should pick the pink flowers. I know they're really pretty, but if you ever see those flowers coming up for now until next 2 months, you should really focusing on clipping off, because once the indigo get flowering and then that plants would not make much pigments anymore. So I don't want them to be so premature fast. So, and also the last time when I harvested indigo, so I harvested like a 5-gallon bucket full indigo, then the amount was about like 4 pounds. So if you can get the idea of how much you could harvest.
Thank you. I appreciate your help.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Let's see. Okay. Somebody's asking, also wondering the best time to plant the seeds I bought. Is it okay? Is it too late to plant them here in Massachusetts? Will they be good for next year?
I don't think it's late yet. What do you think, Kenya? I mean, because it's colder Massachusetts.
Yeah,
so.
I don't understand the climate of Massachusetts. So
oh, Amy is in Massachusetts.
I try not to speak on it. It's very, I'm like, oh, is it 50 degrees there right now?
No, it's warm through September and into the beginning of October. It would be warm enough, I think.
Yeah, and I think also if you're gonna plant, sometimes you're planting just for seeds. And so it offers you the opportunity to get to know the plant a little bit better, to look at its growing patterns, and then to apply whatever information you sort of understand from that season and into the next season. So I will start something in the studio right now. Be like, I don't know. Just gonna see what it does, because I want to spend more time getting to know the plant.
You should try. I don't think it's late. I mean, we will get the only one harvest, but still.
I'm sorry, now I'm seeing you, Kenya, as like honey badger. Like, I'll plant anything. I'll put anything in a pot. I'll grow anything you want now.
Yeah.
Please.
Just not indoors. I don't know how to plant it. Keep things indoors alive.
Yeah, I kill most things indoors, except for anything that's like an aloe plant.
I've had some aloe plants go, so.
Okay, come on. All right. Let's see. Do you recommend planting the seed in a small pot to grow for the first few weeks or months, then planting in the garden? I'd love to know your process. We also have that video too that you made, which I'll make sure I put in the video.
Yeah, I guess I'll answer that. Rosa and I have grown differently in that, like, Rosa has I also have a really sunny place, but Rosa has grown in like egg cartons on the windowsill, attracting all the lovely bugs into her home. And I grow, I will either start seeds in seed trays under grow lights, or I'll just direct sow them. So often if I feel anxious about something, I'll throw, kind of scatter seeds into the soil just to get things going. But I think it just depends, like, really on your style. So if you're a person who, like, you want to have a little more control or be able to have things that you're planting more specifically in rows or however, then you'll have growing them in containers. The only thing about growing them small in smaller containers is that then you're going to have to up pot generally. But, I also only do that if I have to as well. Like the 700 plants that we started, in 2020, I literally grew all of those plants and then, up potted, and then, and it was a real, yeah, it was a lot of work. So you can start in small, and then if you don't have issues with like deer, that has been something new where we have found at Parks and People that the deer tend to like the very small, delicious, leaf. So you might have to then wait until, they're a little larger for them to go into the ground.
I experienced with a lot of different containers. I just wanted to test out. So if you want to do egg carton, don't use a paper egg carton, but use a plastic one, but then making a little hole underneath. Because the paper egg carton, that itself has a chemical ingredient, it would not help the germination from the seeds. So I don't know how to explain for that, but so don't use a paper carton. I don't know. I just wanted to let people do more creative way and spending not too much money for very fancy tools. So but then I found out that the little plastic how to call yogurt containers, small size, that one also really works well, making some 2-3 holes underneath. But then this year, after many different approaches, what I actually liked the most was just a direct sowing on the ground. So I learned from that one of the indigo farmers in Korea who were presenting the conference Kenya and I ran last spring. So they suggest me to direct sow, but instead of making a space, but just a direct sow entire row. So I did it, and then of course there are a lot of plants just pop up, and then a line, and then maybe 4 or 6 weeks later when they got a little bigger, and then I kind of took out plants to make the space, and then after that I replanted those leftover plants on the other side. And then from my experience, I think they're the most strongest ones I've seen so far. Maybe they're not really tall yet because I started later in May, but I think that it seems like similar idea as when Kenya shared that the self-germinated plants from Parks and People are really, they're robust and healthy. I think, yeah, so I kind of see it, yeah, sowing outside, it seems healthier.
Yep, thanks. Okay, Margarita, I am not sure I understand what about your question. It says what can you use instead of lime, wood ash, oyster shell? Is there anything else? Am I reading it right, Margarita?
Yes, yes, you are. I'm just trying to find out alternatives to lime. And I know wood ash is one of them, and I heard about oyster shells, and I'm just wondering if there is anything else.
Other seashells works too, not only oyster shell, but I don't remember let me find my dictionary. Cockle shell, COCKLE.
Is that like a snail?
They're they're
a
like a
berry
seashell. They're like
So
like a clam. Yes, any kind of clam shells would work. I mean, that's what I learned from
instead of lime.
Dyer in Korea.
Something that is not animal related is the wood ash, the only alternative.
Yeah, and also, like a burnt bean stalks.
Oh.
Those are also work well. Some dyers in Korea, they really use burnt bean stalks instead of the seashell powder for the lime source.
Which type of beans? That is really interesting.
Soybeans.
Soybeans. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Margarita, Rosa has so much on the indigo shade map, which again, I'm going to repost that in the video blog post that I put up. But she's got so many interesting recipes for involving indigo on her blog. So you should check it out. indigoshademap.com. Is that what?
Thank you. Thank you.
Rose, I'm going to put it in chat. I'm going to work. You're like, I'm going to put it.
I'll type it. Thank you.
Okay.
you.
Let's see. Will the seeds will your seeds last until next year? You mean if like, which Suzanne, I'm imagining you're saying like the seeds that you currently have right now, will you be able to use them next year to grow?
Yeah, I didn't end up needing them. So I have 2 packages.
Will Suzanne be able to use those next year?
I think you get varying results because obviously like you're going to store them in a certain way. They're going to have aged. So I know Rosa had used some of the seeds that we used from 2019, right?
Yeah.
And so what were your results from that?
They're actually doing really well, but I noticed that the germination time takes so much longer than the fresh seeds. That's what I noticed. So I was the time when I almost like I gave up, okay, this seeds doesn't work anymore. And then they started popping up. So I was actually really surprised. But then after the germination time difference, they were pretty healthy. So I was just surprised. But also that seeds I'm just keeping the older seeds. But I learned that the germination rate will be very low once they pass a year or 2. So, but that's just my personal experience. So
if there's like an apocalypse or something, and you have indigo seeds, and you still want blue, just hold on to them. You don't know what might happen. Okay, yeah. I have small amounts. I have small amounts of indigo leaves drying. How is it best to process them?
How is best to process them?
Yeah, how do you process?
That's me again. I have, just too much to do. The water processing that I'm doing, and I just dyed piles of them, and I'm drying piles of them now, and I would say, I'll probably have like 4 5-gallon containers at least of leaves. Could be less if I, depending on how they grow, but I'm just wondering, what to do with those.
So are you going to dry them?
Yeah, well, some definitely will be dried. And I'd say I have about 1, 5-gallon bucket now, maybe more, but I'll have more later on. And they're going to be dried. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I usually, to dry them, we make bundle and like hang dry them. But I also see many people in Japan, since they do like dry outside. But yeah, I mean, we've been also, Kenya and I've been like drying some of, like, I think we mostly almost like dry half of them drying and half of them for the extraction process, isn't it, Kenya?
Yeah, one of the things that we're experimenting with is just trying to like create dried, because the pasted indigo through water extraction has a shelf life. It also has to be stabilized with refrigeration and things like that. So we're just looking into ways to basically compost or degrade them in something that's not as obviously like technically created through Tsukumo, but drying those leaves and then processing them, grounding them into a fine, like, not a powder, just something that's like fine material. And then using that sort of in kind of the way that you would do other dye materials like marigolds, things like that. and then using that to basically start to create a vat. Like
Yeah.
that's what we're working on right now. That's actually what the harvest. I have basically a whole sheet on the deck at Parks and People drying out, so you can see. And we have two 200-gallon like troughs that have dried leaves from last year. First of all, they smell like cocoa or something. Like I'm really into them. I just like keep smelling them. And then we're gonna take those, remove the stems, and then try our process. So that it would have been a year from when, I mean, and our stuff dries, you know, we have a really hot season. So
Yeah.
we get things to dry. We're not dealing with any, what do you call it? Mold or anything like that. So I would just say that those are some things to consider, like making sure that they dry thoroughly, and then working on just breaking them down, either through like, you know, traditional kind of pounding, or basically processing them so that they reduce down smaller.
But yeah, I cut the leaves off the stems. And so it's just
Yeah.
drying now.
So the once you dry and store it, the leaves, even if you don't know how to make compost, you can still even just boil that dry leaves and dye fabric. So there's a lot of different ways that I think the John Marshall's book also introduced all different recipe and that botanical color salad. I mean, and also, yeah, and maybe you could also use it for like a bundle dyes, or there's a different ways you can anyway use it, and also you can brew and drink it as a tea. So,
but Kenya, you had mentioned it in this answering this question about the shelf life of you know, the stuff that I'm doing with the water process. Could you?
Yeah, well, just more that you know, you have a greater chance of things that are wet, that don't have fermentation, for them to spoil, right? So bacteria, if you're not introducing it, it will introduce itself. And so that is just a possibility. So I think for us, in a lot of ways, it's more of figuring out how to have something, you know, Sukumo will last, you know, endlessly,
10
right?
years plus, yeah.
So yeah, so if you have
much more.
So if you have something that's extracted, and you're keeping it in a refrigerator, obviously you're going to get different temperatures throughout, you know, and even us, like we have a refrigerator that's, you know, very inconsistent, and we're looking to get another one because yeah, we're looking to have basically like a very stable temperature, so that we can keep them. But generally like a year to 2 years is what your pasted indigo will endure. Otherwise it starts to degrade. And so that's kind of why we're also interested in looking at drying. And then there's a lot of different recipes Rosa was experimenting with when we were growing woad a couple of years ago. Like, you know, woad traditionally was done industrially for like in balls.
Like a balls.
And that's something that they do in West Africa with indigo and cocoa leaves, and creating these balls out of what is actually a much more tropical form of the indigo plant. But sort of looking at those recipes and techniques and trying to figure out something that we can use and offer in a way.
Okay, I'm gonna jump into Kiyomi's asking, when putting the seeds directly into the soil outside, do you have recommendations for preparing the soil?
Lots of compost. As much nutrition as possible.
Yeah, I'm not a big, we've had our soil tested several times, and the soil was tested at Parks and People, I think. And I'm just trying to think of, we had it amended when we went into our first season, and the amendments were really off, you know, someone from the agricultural department came up with something. And essentially we had really poor growth. We had a lot of yellowing of the seeds. And so we started doing like direct tea composting, making like a compost tea, brewing it. Son English, who's the other co-farmer at Parks and People, had that knowledge. And so we were basically doing, you know, this for 400 plants, you know, like taking, giving them little tea drinks and like petting them. And, you know, so the first season was like really a lot of exerted energy just on trying to get them to thrive in a healthy way. And so I think once I was like, we're just gonna get Veterans Compost to come dump a bunch of stuff. And I have this great video of like the truck backing up, and my son and I were there, and like it just, you know, so coming off the truck, and there's like all this smoke from, you know, like the sulfur, and he's like, oh God, it's so much, you know. And we just sort of laid that out, and that preparation, along with like, you know, rain and just kind of letting the soil do its work. Once you have that, everything sort of like was just, you know, we started to see birds, right? And we're like, birds mean bugs, birds mean, you know, worms. Like we didn't have, honestly, the first season, we didn't have a single worm. We didn't have any worms.
Oh,
like,
we got, horse manure. After that, we started getting the.
Oh yeah, then we went to the A-rabbers. Oh, we were just desperate. We were like, please, God, just let these things grow. So as Rosa said, just like a healthy amount of compost. And then I just tend to see, as you nurture the soil is nurturing itself. So one of the things that I did at the end of 2019 was I lasagna composted like we have just one bed of indigo. And so basically that's like creating this sheeting where you do brown matter, you do compost, and then you weight it all down with cardboard essentially. And that I did for overwintering. And once I took it off, everything was like beautiful. So I would just say, like, think about like enriching the soil. And if this season doesn't seem super, you know, like things aren't thriving, just continue to condition it over time.
That's great advice. Been doing that in my own front yard where I have really bad, sandy, acidic, nasty soil. I've been just adding compost, and I've actually been using, I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's because Cindy's asking about worm cast for compost. I'm using like bat guano and worm casings.
Yeah, like chicken, fish, emulsion, like all of those things are
pork.
Pork?
I mean, not the pig farm. I mean, not the pork. I mean, pig farm. The best.
Pig
like I'm gonna get pork chops and throw the bones.
Just have pigs come hang out in your garden. I think it's just biological matter. You know, you kind of want everything in there except for human you know, joy, but you know, everything else, like
I think coffee grinds also works really well.
Coffee can work, and you can make your own little sort of, like we were doing with the compost tea. It's basically just like fermenting. I think we just fermented like a lot of animal poop and like fish poop and molasses, and then, you know, let it ferment, and then just gave it like, because also the thing about that kind of stuff like compost tea is that it's really, really strong. It's really concentrated. And so you don't want to dump a bunch on it, because that will do the opposite. It will be too much. So you also have to think about, if you're creating concentrations of something, like allowing, you know, adding a teaspoon, something like that. But then also like over time, you know, it's like you'll get sick if you eat everything all at once. And so the plant will too. So just think about, every couple of weeks we would adjust, you know, try something a little different, a little more.
Okay. So where do I find, I think this is Rosa, where do I find instructions to take the water extracted dye through the next process to making into dye? I'm planning to try dry. It's like a tongue twister. I'm planning to try drying them this year. So need procedures on how to do that too.
How to do the dry the paste, indigo paste, you mean?
water extracted dye through the next process to make into the dye? Maybe that
We-
again. Yeah.
For the small amount, what Kenya and I did, we like sprayed the paste on that, like not the gauze, but cotton fabric, and then kind of like let them dry. And then after that, we could scrape it off, and then you will notice it becomes like dried chips. And when you grind it and becomes like powder form, that's what we did.
Oh, Terry is clarification. How do I make the paste?
How do I make the paste?
Yes, instead of, yeah.
You mean like after the water extraction process, then we filter through it, and then a couple days later, you will see that only pigments being collected on the fabric or coffee filter or like anyway, the filter system, and then you store it, and that becomes the paste. Am I answering right?
Cindy?
That process.
Or sorry, Terry, I mean. Terry, do you feel like are you clear on that? No, Terry's. Unmute yourself and ask Terry if you can. Or maybe Terry doesn't want to.
Well, maybe also just like the water extraction process is essentially, taking the leaves with the stems, soaking them during a pretty hot day. And then once they start to degrade and turn like yellow, you don't want them to be too degraded, like slimy. Oh, I won't. You have more clarity. I won't finish.
No, it's okay, Kenya. I just saw that the Terry answer on the chat box and on the chat.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
She's that there was no written instruction for that. So
I don't know if that's the kind of the thing that I posted the other day about your instructions, but okay, I'll make sure. I'm gonna put a whole bunch of links in there to all the stuff that you're doing, just to have those instructions that one can follow on their own time. So
Kenya, maybe we should make it to
do what?
The instruction, kind of like, I don't know, the
Yeah,
video or written instruction for how we do that during summer.
Can I ask a question about extraction? I did a fresh leaf hot bath extraction last weekend, and it worked, but my God, did it smell. So I don't know if I'm having not done that before or find a reference, if that's what, I mean, it was like a diaper bucket boiled. I mean, it smelled bad. And I don't know if that's, I used lime and then thorax as the reducer. And I did get a really nice color. It is kind of a teal light. It was fine. I'm happy with it. But oh my Lord.
The smell.
Yeah, is that normal?
If the smell was very bad, that means you did a very great job.
Oh my
The smell's supposed to be like that, and I'm really.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if I had done something wrong, but it was like, oh my Lord. All right, thank you.
Yeah,
you didn't do that indoor, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was, but it won't be again.
Yeah.
Kathy's talked about when she's done the 1, 2, 3 vat, that using iron. I don't know if Kathy can hear me right now. I know she's probably doing a million things, but I feel like the iron 1, 2, 3 vat is less smelly when you're making it. Just talking about stinky, smelly things that permeate a home or office space or studio space.
Yeah.
The iron vat, Amy?
What's that, Kathy Atori?
1, 2, 3 vats are definitely less smelly than if you're using thiourea dioxide or sodium hydrosulfite.
But the iron one you said was maybe the least stinky. Did you say that?
None of the 1, 2, 3s smell compared to other vats. Like a true fermentation vat smells just rotten. And then the ones that use chemical reducers, which is thiourea dioxide and sodium hydrosulfite, those all smell like sulfur. So they'll smell really chemically.
Yeah.
I guess my other question with it was I wasn't sure how much. Like I got the process, but then when it came to putting in the lime, I didn't know. No, I mean I knew I started out with about 6 pounds of leaves, but I didn't know how much lime or how much reducer to use. So the soup created was really a bright yellow almost. And in fact, the yarns come in, and it was a silk yarn, it was Erie silk yarn that I dyed, came out bright yellow and then turned to beautiful blue. But I've never seen that in a regular, like I usually do a 1, 2, 3 vat. And I just don't know what's normal.
Well, it's all abnormal basically because you're using a pretty powerful reducing agent. Thiourea is very powerful. So when you get that super like highlighter yellow color, it's considered over reduced, meaning that you used too much.
Too much.
You
How
want
do
it
you
to look,
know?
well, you have to observe the color of it. And so the color should look more like kind of a lime green as opposed to a yellow highlighter yellow.
Okay.
So use if you're going to use that chemical again, use like half of what you did.
Yeah, I probably won't. I'll probably try something more natural. It was just this time there were so many factors going into whether or not I could even get it into the pot.
Yeah.
I think
that's
the
the
next
deal
time
with,
I do it, I'll find a more natural reducer.
yeah, when it has that sort of like unreal, unnatural looking color, it means that you've added too much of the reducing agent. But it's such an easy fix is because as the vat oxidizes, it'll turn greener. And then that's the perfect, shade then to be dipping.
So if I would have just left it alone for a day or so.
Yeah, then it would have gotten, basically as the chemical is working, your vat gets bluer, right? Because the reducing agent gets weaker. And then it's actually then the perfect shade to begin dipping.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
I am putting the 1, 2, well, we're calling it something else. Hold on. Indigo instructions. I just put indigo instructions for different vat types in the chat that's on our site. So you can all go and check it out too, to make sure you try out different vats, try out different things. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, we did a huge comparison of different types of 1, 2, 3 vats because we did one with fructose, we did one with henna, and we did one with iron. And we have swatches of each type. And so you can just look and decide, which one works best for you.
That's great. Thanks, Kathy.
Oh,
I like it.
Rosa, can you put that so it's not going just to me, but to everybody? I just asked Rosa to put a link in there to some of the, another kind of a way you can support what the work of Kenya and Rosa and as part of all that they're doing in Baltimore, the great city of Baltimore that I can't wait to get and give you guys all hugs to get there.
Thank you,
Amy.
Come and see us anytime.
Yeah.
Roll up on me and Rosa on any Saturday of the year. We're at the garden.
Thank you.
All
yeah.
right.
Thank you, Amy, for letting me share that. Oh, that's basically like art subscription plan. So I'm trying to quarterly send. I'm also illustrator and painter. So I'm still in the phase trying to figure out how to manage the subscription plan. But basically, it's our subscription. I've been painting a lot of botanical illustration and painting. So trying to make either calendar with the indigo inspired art prints or like tote bags. So that's the subscription about.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks to both of you for joining in our hashtag Indigo July. Thanks for all the postings and the video and the sharing. Rosa, you're like a champ with resharing on Instagram stories. So thank you for doing that.
Guys are great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like next week at work, we will have an extended version of Brit Bowles from the Indigo Pigment Extractions group. Will be here, and who's also Spell Fiber, to kind of talk more about some of the other questions that go beyond the growing and the harvesting, and kind of the creating of different, mom just came home, different recipes and stuff. So, all right. But thank you so much. And Kathy, I guess we'll just stop the recording. Just gonna stop the recording now. Is it okay too?
Thank you all.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks everybody.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy.